All right, y'all, we back. Another episode of No Pump Fakes. We got a lot to talk about today. First off, though, we got to introduce the guests. We got Will Guillory, all right, Pelicans Beat Writer for The Athletic. What's going on, man?
I'm doing well, man. I appreciate y'all for having me on.
Absolutely. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to talk about the Pelicans, of course, Zion, BI. But before that, it's opening week, and we got, some things to discuss. Now, off rip, Ahmad, I need you to do me a quick favor. I know all three of us watched that Celtics-Knicks game, double overtime. And Will, if you're not familiar, Ahmad is a big Jayson Tatum guy. He's from St. Louis, both of them. But
we have that in common, man. I'm a Tatum guy as well.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he was from St. Louis. I was about to say that.
No.
I'm
New Orleans all day.
Okay.
Great minds think alike, Will.
Right. Well, of course. Well, I mean, but Ahmad, I have a question for you. Hold on. Don't roll your eyes just yet, bro. Let me get the question out.
I'm already tired of it. It's nonsense.
Listen. My DMs were flooded with the whole,
I know.
Tatum question. So I want to present this to you because he's your guy. Right? Let's not even waste no time. Do you feel that Tatum should have been taking, those shots down the clutch? Yes or no?
You always want the best player on your team taking those shots, no matter how bad they're shooting. Nobody ever told Kobe Bean Bryant to pass the ball to one of his teammates or the second best player or let Paul Gasol take the game-winning shot. That's not how it works. Nobody told Michael Jordan to let Scottie Pippen take the game-winning shots. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like I saw the tweets, I saw the people's in my inbox, I saw all the nonsense, but it's just like when you're the best player on your team and Jayson Tatum is the best player on the Boston Celtics, he has to have that ball in his hands, especially since Jayson Tatum last year had like 4 game-winning makes with 5 seconds or less last year. So he's a clutch player. He's proved it. It's just like he had a bad game. It is what it is. It happens. 1 out of 82.
1 out of 82. Will, how do you feel about the game? You saw the double overtime game?
No, I didn't get to watch it. I saw the highlights, but I'm right there with you, man. I think you got to let your best player take the shot. I mean, Jaylen Brown had the big night, so it's understandable why you want to let him maybe get the shot. But, I mean, we saw last year over the weekend, Tatum hit the step back, the bank three. What was over Giannis last year.
Like, what are we doing?
All right.
So, I mean, that's what Tatum does, man. I wasn't too big a fan of him throwing on the Kobe jersey, the whole uniform. That was a little weird when you were a Boston Celtics guy. But, you got to let your best player take the game-winning shot, man. That's what we do in the NBA. It don't matter if you 10 for 10 or 0 for 30. You got to let your best player take the big shot.
Facts.
Cool. I am completely fine with that on both of y'all ends, right? A couple of things, Ahmad. I want to sit here and say, I don't know why you just mentioned Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan. I get the narrative that you're trying to run with. Your best player takes the best shots, but
let's use those as an example.
Right. Well, that's not the example I probably would have went with, but hey, that's your opinion.
Who do you want me to say?
Hold on.
Who do you want me to say?
Hold on, I'll let you run. Hold on, I'll let you run. You feel me? My thing is, right, the best player, right, should take the best shot or the final shot, right, regardless of how the night is going, right? Usually that's the case. But when you have a teammate that's on the verge of scoring 50, maybe, just maybe he should get the last shot. Now, the guys that you mentioned, right, Kobe and Michael Jordan, there is a gap between Kobe and Paul Gasol. There's a large gap between Mike and Scottie. Whether you feel, and I think we all can agree, probably Jayson, is a better play between him and JB. It ain't a large enough gap where I feel like, all right, if Jaylen Brown is taking the shot instead of Jayson Tatum, I'm not comfortable with that. Jaylen was on the verge of scoring 50, bro. 50
I'm not mad at that.
On opening night. So I'm not even saying, again, I'm not saying that Jayson shouldn't have taken it, but I think Jaylen should have, if you will. It's not like, Jaylen was having a bad night as well. You got a guy that's about to give you 50. I mean, maybe, just maybe the play should have been drawn up for it.
But when you got experience and history of hitting those shots, of making those shots, and coming through time after time after time, first off, Jaylen Brown could have gotten that huddle and been like, I want the shot. That didn't happen. The coach could have ran up and said, we're going to draw a play for Jaylen Brown. That didn't happen. You know why it didn't happen? Because of Jayson Tatum's the best player on that team, because of Jayson Tatum's history of making clutch shots. So I get what you're saying, and that's cool, and it would have been fine if Jaylen Brown took the last shots of the game. But at the same time, we're not going to pretend that Jayson Tatum is not Jayson Tatum. Hasn't had plenty of success taking these shots, plenty of success making these shots. Jayson Tatum, who got a 50-point performance against a healthy Brooklyn Nets team in the NBA playoffs without Jaylen Brown and won a game. So come on now. Like, I get it. It's opening tip. It was an opening game. It's opening weekend. People are excited. People all have narratives and agendas to push, especially when it comes to me, of how I feel about Jayson Tatum and putting him over Luka Doncic. You already know. But at the same time, it's one game, 1 out of 82. So let's not get too crazy. And I want to also say this. Your boy Sean from the Knicks wall. My goodness. The Knicks fans, poverty franchise. I'm going to end it at that. They're celebrating game one. They won a championship. That's corny. Knicks fans all over. Corny.
Well, you think Knicks fans are celebrating too early?
Yes, they celebrate they won a championship.
That's what Knicks do. That's what Knicks fans do. You know, they ain't used to too much success over there. I saw the video of
it's crazy.
The fans outside the Garden going crazy. They screaming F Trae Young still, you know, like months later. Like that's just what Knicks fans do. They not used to too much success. You got to give them their moments when they come along. You know what I'm saying? I'm not mad at the Knicks fans. I just like how crazy they are.
All right, listen, we got the Pelicans guy on the episode, so maybe, Knicks fans are, listen, they missed out on the Zion sweepstakes, right? Let's at least, let them be happy. They done gone through a long enough time of being miserable. It's okay if they want to get happy, right, by winning one game. Let them cheer. And like Ahmad, let me ask something, right? If this, why are they a poverty franchise? They're undefeated. They're undefeated. What do you mean? Who are they not? Look at me. You got me defending the Knicks out here. Are they not undefeated? Have they lost?
Did you hear what Will said? They haven't had success in years. Every time they win a game or a big game, if it's like a playoff game or opening night, they want to celebrate, act crazy. I mean, come on, bro. It's embarrassing, but it is what it is. Like Will said, they the Knicks. Shout out to the Knicks.
Okay,
but
well, look.
Okay, that game didn't impress me at all. I would say for the Knicks,
I bet it did.
It didn't impress me at all. The Knicks won a game when Jayson Tatum was shooting like he had a backpack on, and they barely won. That didn't impress me at all. All that did for me was say like, the Knicks probably gonna be in a play-in situation this year. That's all it did to me. That's me personally, though.
It's okay. It's okay to give players and teams their flowers, bro. Even if it is just one game. I know you don't want to blow it out of proportion. I agree. It is just 1 out of 82. I've not said that the Knicks.
You was impressed by that?
It's not that I was impressed. It's not that I'm getting ready to say that they're going to be a top 3 seed in the East. But at the end of the day, they won, and the Celtics did not. Let's talk about what happened.
It was an impressive win when the Celtics' best player was struggling and they barely won in overtime. That was impressive to you.
You can give all the excuses you want.
I'm asking you the question. Was that impressive to you? It wasn't impressive to me.
It was an impressive win to win a double overtime game.
Okay.
Against a Jayson Tatum-led team. Because according to you, Jayson Tatum is a top 10 player in the league. So anytime you can win a game against a team that has a top 10 player in the league, I think that's pretty impressive, especially in double overtime, with it being the first game of the season.
It's gonna be a long season, I see, because it's a lot of people that's gonna overreact to regular season games. It's cool. We'll have this conversation. We'll have this conversation about 2 weeks about the Knicks.
All right, so we're talking about celebrating. Obviously it was also.
I'm just happy somebody not calling the Pels a poverty franchise, man. That's what I'm used to hearing about the
Pels. You might want to slow down on that one.
Listen, it ain't gonna be me. Don't worry about that. But when we shift into the Pelican conversation, one of us, I don't call nobody a poverty franchise, but
they may put the capital P. You might want to slow down, Will, like when we get started. I would say this though, Theus, I think what was most impressive about the Boston Celtics and the Knicks game was Jaylen Brown. It was also Julius Randle. These are two players that came in very raw, and they worked on their game. They develop over time. They actually improve their game. There's a lot of players that come in and they may improve their raw stats and don't actually improve their game. But Jaylen Brown and Julius Randle, not only have they increased their raw stats each and every season, they have improved their overall game. You look at Jaylen Brown, he came in as a defensive player, went from a 3-and-D guy. Now he's an elite 3-level scorer, can create off the dribble, got a bag and everything. Julius Randle went from operating on the low block. Now he can create off the dribble, 3-level scorer, can play the point forward position sometimes for the New York Knicks as well. So that's what I would say. That was kind of my key takeaways from those two players in that game. So
okay,
that's what I was impressed by. Right, more so than like the victory overall.
Okay, I expected that from you. So so Tom, all right, so obviously, there's been other games, over the course of this opening week. Another one, obviously, ring night, ring ceremony. Brooklyn and Milwaukee. Giannis. That's all I'm gonna say. Hey man. Hey man. We might have to have that conversation sooner rather than later. I know you like to say it's one game. Hey. Someone is undefeated. A team in Milwaukee is undefeated. That's all I'm saying. Okay. As of this recording. Well, did you happen to catch the Bucks next game?
Yeah, man, that was wild. Because just to see, we usually see the team that's coming off the championship kind of have a little bit of rust on them. They probably still smelling like a little champagne when they come to opening night. Mm-hmm. And it looked like Giannis was as hungry as ever, man, coming out. It looked like he was working on the jumper during the offseason. We saw he changed the free throw routine. He's not taking, 10 years to shoot a free throw anymore. So, man, it was super impressive. And then Drew went down super early in that game, too. So they got some big performances out of the Jordan Nwora, a dude I never even heard of before opening night. Pat Connaughton hit a couple threes. So, yeah, that team looks as good as ever. Giannis looks as hungry as ever. And they're going to be a tough out for sure. Because, we saw it last year in the playoffs when Giannis is locked in and he playing downhill. Nobody really has an answer for him. It's either you're too slow or you're too small. So it's going to be tough to beat them. But I still believe in Brooklyn, man. I picked them to win the championship last year. I think Kyrie going to get his stuff together eventually. And they're going to have that full team together. And I think once you got Kyrie, Harden, and KD on the court, I just think they're unbeatable. They got too much talent over there.
You think they can win, the championship with or without Kyrie? Regardless?
I think they can. I think it's going to be way tougher just because there's going to be so much on KD. I think he got to be KD. We saw in the playoffs last year, basically, where he got to drop 45, 50 in these big games. And, he can do it. He's KD. We know who he is. But, it's just tough to expect that round in, round out, especially when the East is a little tougher. The Lakers are coming now. You got a few other teams. The Phoenix Suns got more experience than they did last year. So it's going to be tough. But, I think if you got healthy James, healthy KD, I think they can get out the East for sure. It's just going to be a lot of stress on those two guys.
There's not much I can, disagree with that. Me and Ahmad have talked about this before. You still have Kevin Durant and James Harden. Kyrie is definitely going to be missed whether he plays or not. But, those two guys aren't mids. Go ahead, Ahmad.
No, you was talking about Giannis. You may have that conversation about the best player in the world. We've gone through that time and time again. We need to have a conversation about LeBron James because that's who really looks like the best player in the world still. My goodness. My goodness. Did you not watch that game? Oh, my God. LeBron is really –
he was looking –
No, he was like he was
a shot the whole game.
He was like he was in mid-season form. He got his weight down. He's a little slimmer. Got the number 6 in the headband back like he back in Miami. It's LeBron looking right. He looking right. And I'm not worried about the Russell Westbrook. Everybody's going to talk about Russell Westbrook and this and that. I'm not really worried about that. I think Russell Westbrook is going to figure out. Russell Westbrook is usually a second half of the season type of player. I think eventually once he gets the feel for playing with LeBron, playing with Anthony Davis, he's going to be a souped-up version of Rajon Rondo, playing that third option, facilitating, getting to the rim, and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I feel about the Lakers, but I was very impressed by LeBron James.
Even though it was just one game?
Yeah, even though it was just one game. I'm not still saying – I still think that the best player in the world is still Kevin Durant, but I'm just saying after one game, it's like you have a conversation like – LeBron looked very, very, very special. But that is just like it's LeBron. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just saying how high you are, to talk about one game for when LeBron is playing well. But when we're talking about another player wearing green, it's it's just one game. Let's all calm down. So it's either you appreciate one game or you're treating them as a regular season.
Giannis, the Bucks. I
wasn't even talking about Giannis. That's crazy. I wasn't talking about.
You said wearing green. Watching the Bucks play. I didn't really. Did we see in the first game what we saw in the preseason? Because I saw him hit. He made 1 3, and then I didn't really see the cream off the dribble, the getting operating the second zone again. So it's like what you looking for and what I'm looking for are two totally different things. Okay, I'm just making sure. I'm just making sure if that's because you said somebody in green, and Giannis wears a green jersey all the time. So I'm just making sure.
I respect the dodge. There's another NBA team that wears green. I thought it was pretty obvious, but we won't have to talk about it. We don't have to go back. We have to go. Jayson Tatum. Are you talking about Jayson Tatum? Yes. I mean, yes.
Jayson Tatum should be mentioned with those guys. Are we talking about 3 top 5 players? Of course, I'm thinking you're talking about Giannis. If you know, come on now.
I'm not comparing Tatum to those guys. I'm talking about the idea of how you value one game. And how you were saying LeBron is looking like this, in one game. You should.
We haven't seen a help. I'm saying about LeBron James because last time we saw LeBron James, he wasn't healthy. He was bigger. He was coming off a high ankle sprain. He was like, come on now. That's what I'm saying. Things. Don't try to stop the nonsense. Stop trying to swerve and do all this what you're doing. That's not gonna fly over here.
All right, whatever. All right, listen. So we got one more, I guess, trio of players I want to touch on before we dive more into the Pelicans. The Melo, Ja, and Anthony Edwards. Will, talk to me about those 3 guys. And obviously, I know the Pelicans have 2 very talented young guys, but those 3 specifically, how you feel about them? LaMelo, Ja, and Anthony Edwards.
Nah, man, I want to talk about LaMelo with the lime green trench, with the lime green pants and the whip.
No games. No games. Over there looking like the Green Hornet.
That new money is
special
when it gets to the NBA, man. But I mean, them dudes are impressive, and I really want to see what Ja gonna do this year with Jonas. Obviously, with the Pelicans, now I think he got to take on a little bit more offensively, and you saw him do that in that first game. And I think that's how he jumps into that upper echelon with the elite point guards, is where he can get you 25 every night instead of just on his good nights. And I think that was a good start for him. But now I just want to see what LaMelo gonna pull out for the rest of the season, man. If that was night 1, I want to see playoff game when he gonna show up in the tunnel. I mean, the all lime green, everything was serious.
Yeah, I sent out a post on Slam talking about the first game was just a warning. Year 2, LaMelo was here, and I know Ahmad, you talked about how the Warriors probably should have taken advantage of the opportunity of getting him at 2. Yep. Him kind of being able to play behind Steph and learn from Steph. But
man, him and Golden State would have been crazy.
Yep. There's too much nonsense that goes on in the NBA. That has these GMs, has these front office members not really picking the right players they're supposed to pick. LaMelo Ball was there for the taking. They're going to regret that for the next 10 years because they had Stephen Curry's successor right there, and they passed him up. And we can end it at that because I'm not trying to get Golden State Warriors fans on my head, but that's just the truth. LaMelo Ball is special. LaMelo Ball is here. At the end of the season, we may be having a legitimate argument of like, is LaMelo Ball a top 5 point guard in the world? So that's how special I think LaMelo Ball is.
But do you think that's part of the fear? It's kind of like a Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers thing where you don't want to make your superstar mad that you feel like you're drafting his successor when he's still that guy. You know what I'm saying? It's like like I'm still that dude, and you drafting a dude that's going to replace me. Yeah, that type of stuff going to it. But we completely agree. LaMelo's definitely the right pick right there.
Well, I think it would be different if Stephen Curry wasn't the greatest point guard when it comes to off-ball movement in the history of the NBA. Stephen Curry may be better off the ball than he is on the ball. So you know what I'm saying? I don't think it would have been a match made in heaven because you could have had like Steph Curry kind of aging more gracefully with having less responsibility, having another guy that can play on ball while Steph is playing off ball. Now Steph Curry got to be in his mid to his late 30s playing on the ball all the time, and it's just kind of like who's gonna really facilitate that role, because you got Draymond, of course, but Draymond's still not a natural, like, it's only so much of Draymond playing that role that's going to really do something against teams, especially in the playoffs, because he can't shoot the ball. If you had LaMelo Ball playing that role, it's kind of like LaMelo can score, he can pass, he can rebound, he can do everything. So it's like he's more dangerous. So like I said, I think the Warriors are going to be regretting that decision for the next 10 plus years. Even though James Wiseman, I think he's going to be a stud. He thinks he's going to be solid, but it's just kind of like LaMelo Ball was there for the take, especially since Klay Thompson is basically going to play a half a season this year as well. So,
I mean, to me, it's all about like accepting the challenge. Like, if you're a Hall of Famer like Steph is, I would hope he doesn't take it personally. Like, oh wow, you're drafting, a young guy. Like, no shade to LaMelo, but something tells me that if you got both of them, either you start both of them or you start Steph at the 1. I don't think they would ever like LaMelo, especially like where Steph is at his career. And also too, I don't think Steph is that type of guy. Like, I don't think Steph would be like, oh shit, we got LaMelo. Let me, let me talk to management. He probably embrace anybody. You see how he was with kind of KD. You know what I'm saying? Welcome to open arms. So, but yeah, so we covered, everything recently. Obviously LaMelo, he has a brother in the league, Lonzo, former Pelican. So we could just get right into that.
That's a very interesting.
That's my question. Why no Lonzo in New Orleans? Why?
Man, that's a tough one.
Yeah, because it's confusing.
I think I was screaming it all last off season. I think that Lonzo Zion tandem. I thought it was going to be fun to watch for years to come. All of those half court lives, and I thought Lonzo did such a great job of feeding Zion all the time. But I think if you're the Pels, this was more of a long-term outlook type of move where they looked at Lonzo and said, all right, we're going to have to pay him $20 million a year. And then we looking down the line of paying B.I. the max, paying Zion the max, paying Lonzo $20 a year, potentially playing Jonas Valanciunas $15 plus. They just gave him an extension. That's an expensive roster. You know what I mean? And we don't really know how good they would have been together. If you're paying that much for your roster, you got to be competing for a championship. And as much as I like that Lonzo, B.I., Zion trio, I don't know if you can say, if those are your three best guys, we ready to win in the West. You know what I mean? I think they wanted to maintain a little bit more flexibility. I think they wanted to keep themselves open for, potential Dame Lillard sweepstakes, potential Bradley Beal sweepstakes. And even though those might be a little bit out of reach, but I think they want to just be in that conversation because that's the way you make that jump. If you want to keep Zion in New Orleans, it's about putting a team around him that can win the championship. And I think it's, again, as much as I like Lonzo, if you're paying that much money to Lonzo, B.I., and Zion, I don't know if you got real championship potential. And now, if you could have got Lonzo for something like you got Devonte Graham for 4 for 48, somewhere in that neighborhood, maybe. But when you end up giving them 4 for 80 in Chicago, I thought they just looked at that and said, that's a lot to pay a dude that, are we ever going to look at Lonzo and say he's a top 10 point guard in the league? I don't know. I just think that we've seen consistent growth from him, but I don't know if he's ever going to be that guy. And if you're paying that much for your point guard and you're giving out 2 other maxes in your starting lineup, I think it's just a lot, again, for a franchise that's not like in a rush to pay the luxury tax either.
It sounds like they're not in a rush to actually win and compete because you talked about for them to win championships, a Damian Lillard or a Bradley Beal. When is the last time we've seen a key free agent say we're going to sign with the Oregon Pelicans? So the best thing, they had 3 guys under 25 in Lonzo Ball, in Brandon Ingram, and Zion Williamson that they could have kind of groomed and built kind of into a championship caliber roster. So it's just kind of I understand, Will, but it's just it's hard for me to believe that the Oregon Pelicans are actually really serious about winning because history has shown we have never really seen a star free agent really say, I want to come and play with the Oregon Pelicans.
I don't think it'll be a free agent. I think they would probably hope to go the Kawhi Toronto route where they trade for a dude, hope he comes in and meshes with what they got going, and then they make a run. Because you got to remember, they still got all them picks from the AD trade, still got all the picks from the Drew Holiday trade. They got a whole bunch of young dudes on the roster, so they're primed to make a big deal at some point. But it's just a matter of who you can get. And I think to that point, I don't think you don't want to be in Toronto's situation where you trade all of these. And Toronto didn't really give up that much. But if you're the Pelicans, you're going to give up a whole bunch to get a guy and then watch him walk a year later. I think that would be really tough for them. But I think they'd be willing to do that if it's the right guy, if it's a Kawhi Leonard type of guy who can come in and lift your franchise. But I think, again, they want to commit to a guy who can get them to that next level. And as much as we all like Lonzo, I like Lonzo, but I don't really look at him as the guy that was going to take them to that championship level, not with this current roster.
Okay. And Will, how long did you say you've been covering the Pelicans again?
Yeah, this is my 6th year. This is my 4th year with the Athletic. I did 2 years at NOLA.com, Times Picking You. And I tell everybody, man, my first 5 years on the beat had to be the craziest 5 years for anybody in the league. My first year, I wasn't even supposed to be the Pels beat writer, but that's a whole different story. They had the All-Star game in New Orleans. I'm sitting courtside in New Orleans, and I get a tweet, the Pelicans trade for DeMarcus Cousins. So that's my first year on the beat. Second year on the beat, DeMarcus tears his Achilles. They go to the playoffs, have sweet Portland, that whole run. My third year, Anthony Davis demands a trade in the middle of the season, blows the whole team up. Fourth year, Zion Williamson comes in and changes everything. I'm in Chicago right now. I'm literally a block down from where I was when they pulled the lottery ball to get Zion Williamson. And then last year, just look, COVID hit in the middle of the season. The season got canceled. I'm in Sacramento when the whole season got canceled. So, yeah, my first 5 years have been wild. I'm just hoping these next 5 years it might be a little bit more toned down. Not so much craziness going around the team.
Yeah. And I guess over that time span, right, do you feel that the Pelicans have recovered yet from the Anthony Davis trade?
I mean, I think, getting BI out of that deal was probably as good as anybody's done in the league as far as trading away a superstar. What we talk about all the time is these teams don't want to give away superstars because you don't really get anything good in return. If you look back at the history, and I think if you look back at all of the superstar trades, I think BI is probably one of the top 3 guys you can get back in a superstar trade. So they love BI. BI committed to the franchise, signing a 5-year deal. We talked about how dudes don't want to sign in New Orleans. BI did, and he's committed to the team. So that's big for them. And then, they kind of got Zion out of it. So I think,
exactly.
That was pretty good. That was a real luck thing more than, doing anything to trade AD. But to bounce back from, because I was in the building after AD demanded the trade. And I can tell you, man, it was dead in the Smoothie King Center. It was like zombies walking around there. That building was empty. Whenever it was always more Roll fans in the home crowd and just walking around that team and talking to people. It was like, man, I don't know how we're going to recover from this, the way AD left that team. And then to bounce back literally a couple months later and get the next big superstar out of college, it changed everything for the team. But now it's just a matter of getting them healthy and getting them on the court. That's the next story. But now having Z and BI as your foundational pieces moving forward, that's a huge win for this team. It's just a matter of getting those dudes healthy and getting the right pieces around them.
Yeah, now, well, you talked about getting Zion Williams healthy. Do you feel like a healthy Zion Williams with the New Orleans Pelicans this year can be enough for the New Orleans Pelicans to go and make a run, maybe like a play-in situation or secure a playoff spot?
Yeah, to me, if they got healthy BI, healthy Zion, I think it'll be a huge failure if they didn't make the play-in, if I can be real. I mean, we talk about you just got to get to the 10th seed. You know what I mean? This ain't like the old West where you got to get to the 8th seed. It's just getting to the 10th seed. And that's like barely over 500, maybe. You know what I mean? So I think if you got 2 all-star level dudes, you got to be there, in my opinion. And I think that the big question for them is when is he going to be healthy? What's he going to look like once he comes back? What's the concern about potential re-injury with a foot fracture? We've seen that before. I think back to KD when he came back from that foot fracture in OKC, and he kind of dealt with that for the rest of the season, even once he came back. So I think that's going to be a big concern for them, and that's why they're taking it so slow. But, yeah, I think once Z comes back, I mean, I think people sleep on because we all hear the fat Zion jokes, and he ain't got no jumper, and he ain't this and he ain't that. But, I mean, I saw that dude last year average 27 a game, shoot 60% from the field. And it was just all layups. Like, I never seen anything like it in my life. The dude only shot layups. And you just couldn't stop him. They had no shooting around him. The other 5 guys in the lineup didn't fit. BI wasn't quite himself. They weren't big fans of the coach. You see, he got up out of that ASAP. So I think if Z can just get back to where he was last year with BI, I think they're going to be dangerous. But I think, to me, I feel like he's going to come back even better this year. Just because of that experience he had last year and knowing what he needs to do to add to his game to get better.
Yeah, and kind of going off that, do you think the Pelicans are going to have to make a decision in terms of choosing which one is going to be their number one guy? Or do you feel that, they can kind of work hand in hand, like it can be a legitimate duo?
No, I mean, I think if Z's healthy, there's no question he's the number one guy. I think what you saw last year with him, I think that the separation happened between him and BI. I thought that was super interesting. In year one, where BI kind of blew up and became all-star, most improved, got the max. And I think that was the big question going into last year. How is that going to work once Zion is healthy? But I think once they kind of went into that point Zion mode and he was averaging 30 a game, like down to 65% from the field, I think I was like, all right, we know who's the man on this team. It's a matter of how BI is going to fit. And I think that's the beauty of BI's game. He can fit with other guys. He can shoot from the perimeter. He can play off the ball. So it's not like BI's like, I need the ball to be successful. I think they can work together. It's just a matter of, again, Z being healthy and putting the right pieces around. Because I think those two played really well together during stretches last year. And I think the fact that Z shoots so well from the field, he only need like 15 shots a game. He can get you 30. You know what I mean? It's not like you got to run a whole bunch of your offense through him. It's just a matter of getting the right backcourt around them And I think they feel like they got the right coach finally in Willie Green. They love Willie Green. They feel like he's brought a different vibe to the team. So I think they feel like they checked off that one. But now the big question is, just getting that backcourt right and helping them out, in that area.
How do you feel about Nickeil Alexander-Walker? I feel like he's a special young talent playing the 2-guard position for the Orleans Pelicans. Like, how good can he be? Can he possibly win the most improved player of the year this year? Because that's, I think, his potential ceiling for this season.
I've been screaming since, Nickeil was a rookie, man. I'm a huge Nas stan. I've been a big believer in that dude and his talent. I love the way he sees the game. When you talk to him, the dude is so thoughtful, and the way he sees the game, the way he thinks about his teammates. I think at times he can get a little tunnel vision. And, he feels like he's one of those dudes where, like, I want to be so good and I want it right now. I gotta go do something. I gotta go take a shot. I gotta go take the step back. And I think that's good in doses, but you gotta know how to bring it back. But I think that's something that you just learn with time and more opportunities. I think it's real important for them to get him in that starting lineup so he can figure out how to play next to BI and next to Z. But yeah, I agree with you. I think once they get that whole lineup together, I think he could be a potential most improved player because he got all the tools. He got the size. He played defense, shoot from the perimeter. He makes plays with the ball in his hands, sees the entire court. I think that dude is so talented, man. I just think he just needs to be in the right system and be given an opportunity. And I think he's going to blow up. I'm a huge Nickeil fan.
Now, Will, usually when me and Ma talk about, young players and guys 25 and under, there's like a tier, like a group that we tend to like just say is really stamped and proven. And in that top tier is 5 guys, right? Usually when we say it's Luka, Spider, Jayson Tatum, Trae Young, and Devin Booker. And the reason why, I'm bringing this up is I want to ask you in terms of Zion, what do you feel Zion would have to do to, I guess, guarantee a spot or jump into that tier? And not to say that he's not there already, but I think, I can't speak for him out, but the lack of playoff success and the injuries, especially compared to those other guys. That's the only reason why, personally, I would say there's a difference. But what do you feel, that Zion would have to do this year to put himself in that type of conversation?
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. It's simple. We got to win. He got to win. I think being 10 games under 500, and it just can't happen if you're one of the top guys in the league. He got to be healthy, and he's got to win. He's got to show he can lead this team. He got to show he can carry dudes on his shoulder. That's what I wrote a lot, going into this season. He proved last year that he could put up the big numbers. He could be an all-star. He can, go head-to-head with some of the top guys in the league. But if you want to be in that elite category with all of those guys you mentioned, you got to go win. You got to go have some success in the playoffs. You got to prove, especially in the West, where it's just, so many great teams, so many great players that you can hang with those dudes. And I think he has it in him. It's obvious. We see all the talent inside him. It's just about going out there and doing all the little things. I think that's the big question now. Last year we saw his game was so offensively focused, and I think he kind of got lost on the other end of the court because he was so determined to prove what he can do as a great offensive player. And now it's just a matter of making more of an impact on defense, making more of an impact with your decision making, lifting your teammates up. Talking to those guys when they're down. Speaking of Nickeil Alexander-Walkers of the world, helping those guys become better. I think that's the transition you see. We hear about it all the time on TNT. Charles Barkley talks about it all the time. Once you're really great, it's not about what you do. It's about how you make everybody else around you better. And I think that's the next step for Z. And that's when we're going to see him get into that next category.
It's crazy how you talked about he was so focused on offense because I felt that, since Zion Williamson came into the NBA, like he came out of college, his defense was crazy. Right. I haven't seen that in the NBA at all. And I want to know, is that a product of maybe his weight and his health, not being healthy on the basketball court? Because I always felt like his weight would be a little bit deleterious to his knees and his lower body. And it's kind of like, that's kind of been true. There's a report saying that he may be as north of 300 pounds. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if you know if that's true or not. But at the same time, it's just like that is probably the biggest concern with Zion Williamson, I'm sure, with the Oregon Pelicans organization.
Yeah, I think, his overall condition, I think, had a big impact on just the way he was playing, especially that first season. I think last year it was a little bit overblown because them dudes was playing every other night. I think it was hard for anybody to be out of shape when you're playing 60 games in the COVID season. Like, them dudes was playing so much. I think His minutes were up there. He was averaging so many points. I think it was just a lot of burden on him on offense. And I think in that Stan Van Gundy offense, it was so much Zion ISO, so much BI ISO. I think it took away from what they were doing on the other end. But I think during his rookie year, there's no doubt we didn't see that Duke Zion defensively just because he wasn't where he needed to be weight-wise and conditioning-wise. And I think they were bringing him along slowly, and COVID just hit at the worst time possible because that's when they really were getting it rolling. And they had Zoe, they had Drew, BI was playing well, Z was going crazy. I think that team had the potential to make a real run. But I think, it's unfortunate that the foot happened because I think that was his focus this season, was making more of an impact defensively, improving his decision-making. And, now the question is, with a foot injury, with a knee injury, there's only so much you can do conditioning-wise. There's only so much running you can do. There's only so much you can do to keep that weight off. So I think it's going to be tough for him. And I think they're going to try to bring him along slowly because of that. But I think, again, he's getting older. He's getting more mature. So he understands what it takes for him to get better and to rise. And I think he cares a lot about where he ranks with these other guys. And he wants to be considered the best of the best. And I think he sees that in him. But for him to get there, he's got to do all those little things. And again, I'm going to bring it back to what I said earlier. I think Willie Green is the right coach for this team because of the mentality he brings, the winning background he has, and the way he can talk to guys. I think last year with Stan Van Gundy, the issue was, and I really like Stan, I think he's a very smart guy when it comes to basketball. When you hear him talk, the guy knows way more about basketball than I can ever say I know. But I think that the people skills, what was missing, and especially with a young team that was learning themselves, learning how to win, I think he was just a lot on them every single day, especially in the COVID season when you don't have that day off in Chicago where you can just get away. You know what I mean? Those guys were just stuck in the hotel every single night, playing games every other day, and it was just a lot of weight on them with just the way Stan Van Gundy coaching. I think Willie Green has brought in a much more laid-back type of environment. He's a guy who's been there, done that. He's been around the KDs, the Stephs. He knows what it takes to play at that level. So I think having him here, in New Orleans, I think is going to be huge for them. And I think just having him around Z and BI, I think he's going to make a real big impact on those guys, just the way they see the game.
Yeah, he's definitely well respected around the league. But in talking about former coaches, that reminds me, like, there were flashes of Zion playing point guard at certain points. No. We're gonna have to talk about that. I mean, Will, how do you feel about that?
I mean,
somebody gotta ask it. Somebody gotta ask it.
I kind of look at it. To me, I think when Z's gonna be at his very best, I think it's gonna be very Giannis-like in the way he operates, and where I think it's gonna be a whole lot of times where he dribbles the ball up the court. He's the guy initiating the offense. So you can say he's the quote unquote point guard in that scenario. But I think they're not going to win unless they have multiple guards around him to make the game a little easier for him. I think if you're expecting him to come up and rim pick and roll 40 times a game, I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't think he's going to be he's going to put up big numbers, but I don't think they're going to be as successful running that type of system. And I think, kind of throwing him in the fire the way they did last year with Stan, I think was good for him because he learned a lot of tough lessons. He got better, seeing the whole court, understanding where double teams were coming from, understanding teams were throwing so many crazy defenses at him. They were throwing 1-2-2s at him. They were playing boxing one because they were just so terrified of him getting to the basket. But I think, as time goes along and as this roster flushes out, I think you're going to need some other guards around him because he can do so much in transition. He catches lives and all that stuff. And you can't take that away from him and just say, okay, we just need you to be at the top of the key, pounding the ball, calling out plays and all that. I just don't think that's the right way to use him. Yeah. But again, I think you can use him the way they use Giannis in Milwaukee, where they start off sets where Giannis is at the top of the key. They start off sets where Giannis is running pick and roll, just because that gets him downhill a little easier. But I think you got to have other guys around him just to help him out a little bit.
Yeah, Giannis is 6'10", Zion's 6'6", with probably more weight on him than Giannis has. So I don't see him doing that for a long duration of time. And also with Brandon Ingram as well. You talked about Brandon Ingram and their relationship and how like the duo can work together. I personally feel I think that Brandon Ingram has to kind of be the engine for the Oregon Pelicans. When we talk about running the offense like through somebody, I think you should run it through Brandon Ingram because he's going to be healthy and his game is more easier in the half court, especially if you go to the playoffs. Like He can score at every zone of the basketball court. Like, he can break down off the dribble. He can get his shot when he wants to. He can shoot better than Zion. So I'm interested to see what happens when Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram play together this season, because just based on last year and watching some of those games, having Brandon Ingram stand in the corner and letting Zion be like this Giannis type of player, I don't think that was really, conducive to Brandon Ingram's talent. So I'm very interested to see what happens with those two going forward.
But see, the only reason why I would push back on that is something I said earlier. I think when you look back at Z last year, when the efficiency is as high as it was, it's not like you got to run as much as your offense through him. You know what I mean? When the dude's shooting 60% from the field, he don't need that many shots to get him. He was doing him last year, and they had the whole point Zion thing, and he put up a career high in points. And B.I. basically put up the same numbers he did when he was an all-star. I mean, if you look at the numbers, they're basically exactly the same in every single category. So I think B.I., they can coexist just with the way Z plays and the way he doesn't need the ball to run through him. And B.I., again, his efficiency is going to continue to go up. He continues to improve as a passer. That's what I think people sleep on with him. I think in pick and roll, he just keeps getting better and better. That's why I think they can coexist, because, again, I think B.I. is a guy who can make those spot-up jumpers when you're sending double teams at Z. And I think the reason why I think the offense needs to run through Z, because, again, he just draws so much attention. It just takes so much to keep him from the basket. And when you got who can basically force a double team every time he touches the basketball, that's just going to make the game easy for everybody else. And I think last year you saw they had Steven Adams at center, who wasn't a threat offensively. Eric Bledsoe, who wasn't a threat offensively. Yeah. Lonzo's three-point numbers are good, but teams don't treat him like a shooter. They're willing to leave him. JJ Redick really wasn't there at all. So I think they just didn't have as many options. And now I think giving Nickeil a bigger role, Devonte Graham at point guard, just having better shooters around there, I think it's going to make life a lot easier. And again, if Z just keeps forcing double teams every time down, I mean, why wouldn't you give him the ball? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a name, Will, that I wanted to talk about too. Obviously, we talked about, B.I., Zion, and obviously Lonzo used being there, even AD. But Devonte Graham, everyone is talking about Lonzo's departure. But talk to me too about what it means that the Pelicans were able to add a guy like Devonte Graham.
Yeah, I mean, I just said that I think people sleep on. If you look at the numbers, man, he's one of the top tier shooters in the league. When you look at volume and percentage wise, he can do it off the dribble. He can do it in spot up. So I think they love his fit next to Z and B.I. as a guy who can make those jumpers. I think he's a guy who can hit those pull-up jumpers as well off of the Jonas pick and roll. So I think that's going to make him a threat. I think the big question for him is how he can diversify his game. Can he get to the basket a little bit more? Can he do some other things? I think that was one of the big gripes with Lonzo, where he was a guy that just never drove to the paint, never got to the free throw line. And I think they want guards on the perimeter who can do that a little bit more to help Z. But I think, they love Devonte Graham. They love his presence. I think he's got one of those, like, Kemba Walker personalities where he just walks in the room and everybody gravitates toward him. All his teammates love him. And I think that's one of the reasons they wanted to bring him in. David Griffin's big on that culture in the locker room and the personalities you put around your stars. And I think that's one of the reasons they kind of fell in love with Devonte Graham in free agency. But yeah, I think, again, it's about him adding to his game, knowing how he's going to play next to Z and B.I. And defensively, I think he's a smaller point guard. I think if you get into playoff situations, he might get targeted a little bit the way Kemba did. So I think that's going to be the big question, how he handles that, how they handle that as a team. But I think they really like him and what he brings. And I think he has the potential to really blow up, especially with Z out. And if they give him the ball more often and give him more opportunities, because last year was just so tough for him with LaMelo coming in, with Gordon Hayward coming in. They kind of were just like, hey, Devonte, go away. This is their team now. And they were just like, man, I was just, a most improved candidate last year. And now y'all telling me to stand in the corner. So I think that was tough for him. But I think now he's going to be able to stretch his legs out a little bit more and show what he can do.
Well, one thing's for damn sure. He's going to have opportunity.
I hope so, because Devonte Graham, I think he's a solid player. But he shot 40% from the field last season, and he's a gunner. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know if, I think this season is going to tell a lot, that they really make a right decision of, letting that relationship with Lonzo Ball kind of deteriorate and then bringing on Devonte Graham. It's going to tell a lot, because I think one guy has all-star caliber point guard potential, another guy is maybe a fringe starter. Maybe I kind of feel like the New Orleans Pelicans are kind of waiting to see what Carl Lewis becomes and can he develops more quickly, and then probably maybe gravitating Devonte Graham back into a bench role, 6-man role. That's kind of how I feel personally, but we'll see. Well, it's going to be interesting. I'm definitely going to be watching the New Orleans Pelicans this year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be the biggest question for them, just the backcourt overall. I mean, we mentioned Nickeil, Devonte, Kyra Lewis is a young guy who they really like. Is a trip that he's still the youngest guy on the team, and after he got drafted, because he was just so young coming out. So I think they're trying to wait for him to kind of develop. They brought in Saturansky, they brought in Garrett Temple, Josh Hart still here. So I think there's a lot of questions in that backcourt, and I think that's going to be one of the biggest questions for this team throughout the season, is just how that backcourt looks and how they complement the two stars. Because there's a lot of question marks. There's no question, and those guys got something to prove. But I think there's no doubt there's a lot of talent there as well, and those guys can do it. It's just a matter of how they fit.
Okay, well, I mean, but before we let you go, Will, if you could.
Question. Yeah.
Oh, my fault. Go ahead.
No. This is my last question. In 5 years, will Zion Williamson still be in a New Orleans Pelicans jersey?
Ooh, yeah, it's been a tough one. I think, man, it's a lot of convo about Zion and his future in New Orleans, and I contributed to it because me and my man Shams and Joe Varden put out a story over the summer about Zion and his people being unhappy, and I stand by all of that reporting. You hear it throughout that, especially last year, there was a lot of unhappy people about that situation. But I think, man, 5 years down the line, so much can change, man. Just look back 5 years ago in the NBA and what all of the faces were looking like.
That's why I asked.
Well, I mean, 5 years is low-key a long time. Yeah, 5 years is low-key a long time, bro.
I'm trying to be nice because I
had you said 2 or 3, I'm like, all right, that's really putting pressure.
If you told me 2 or 3, there's a lot of talk about him turning down the qualifying offer and all that. Well, I don't see that happening.
No, he turned down that money.
Too much money. That's what I. Some dudes ain't turning that down. I think dudes are looking at the Ben Simmons blueprint. If anything, it's like I just take the money and demand a trade later. So maybe that happens with Z. But I think it's just about how they build the team around him. How what's going to happen with David Griffin? How he handles that all of these draft picks and assets they got. But I think, anybody talking about Zion passing the money, I would be completely shocked. I don't think there's any way that dude's turning down that money now. Are the Pelicans going to do the right thing and build a team around him that'll make him want to stay in New Orleans? I think that's a different question. And I think up to this point, David Griffin hasn't done a great job of proving he could be that guy. You know what I mean? He's made some good decisions. Some bad ones, you know what I mean? So I think
Will, you gotta chill. You feeding into Ahmad's agenda, probably franchise right now, man. I can feel it. The more you saying that, the more Ahmad just fuel to the fire, man.
I just don't know. This offseason, I'm looking at the roster. I like Jonas, but I'm looking at Devonte Graham. He's a nice player, but it's just kind of like, I'm gonna say this again. I said it already. You had 3 guys, under 25 and under who had a lot of potential. It's just like probably would have been more easier just to see that through. You kind of put more pressure on yourself with kind of getting a Devonte Graham and Jonas. And now it's just kind of it's easy for guys to kind of develop Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, and Lonzo Ball had a great relationship together. So it's just kind of now it's a lot of pressure. Zion Williamson probably looking around hey, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, it's gonna be interesting.
I think the pressure was gonna be there regardless, just because of Z's so great and he's so famous and all the LeBron comparisons and all that. So I think the pressure was gonna be there regardless if they kept Lonzo or not. And I think obviously he liked Lonzo, so he wasn't really happy about Lonzo leaving. I don't think any of them were, but I think like I said, once you kind of break it down as far as how they work the salaries and stuff, I think it was kind of understandable. But I think the big thing again, I don't think. If you're going to judge, again, going back to your first question, what's this team going to look like 5 years from now? I don't think it's about these guys on this current roster. I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I think it's about who's the big name they're going to trade for, because they're going to make a big trade at some point.
I don't see it.
It's not me reporting anything.
Right.
That's how you feel. That's how you feel.
I got you. Yeah,
that's how you feel personally.
I just think they're going to make a big trade at some point. I don't know who it's going to be for, but I think that's the way you convince Zion to stay here. It's getting a 3rd star in the building, and it's just a matter of who he is and how they get him, and if they can get that guy to commit long term.
Yeah, that's probably the only way. Because let me tell you what I feel, and we're gonna let you go, Will. I really feel that the Oregon Pelicans are about to lose 2 generational type of talents in the next, basically the same decade. They lost Anthony Davis in 2020. There's a possibility they can lose Zion Williamson, before the end of this decade as well. And that's hard to imagine. That's hard to recover for him. You got a gem with Zion Williamson being the number 1 overall draft pick, and now it's just like you said, you wrote a story on it. I actually read the story, so I listened and I was looking at the story. I'm like, damn, like if this shit is true, it's just like, yo, it's very, very crazy. So it's gonna be interesting though, for sure.
Hey man, I'm from New Orleans, born and raised, man. So I hope C's stick around. I hope they figure it out. I was a Hornets fan back in the G and the CP3 days, so I hope they figure it out. But yeah, it's gonna be tough, man. There's a lot of pressure on these franchises because these dudes are changing the game, man. The way the power they're able to grab on this league at superstar level, man, and they put a lot of pressure on you as a franchise. And I think this whole Z thing changed the game because we haven't seen a dude already with the Grumblers this early. I mean, he hadn't even played 100 games yet, the NBA.
It's crazy.
And we already got the Grumblers going. So yeah, I just think it's a new world in the NBA, and it speeds up the process for everybody. So I think it's going to be a lot of pressure on David Griffin to figure this thing out. But I think they're fortunate to have Brandon Ingram in the building. That's all I'll say, because he's committed to this thing. He signed long-term. B.I. ain't going anywhere. It's just a matter of who's that third guy they're going to put next to Z and B.I. and just how that whole thing fit.
We're going to see. They kind of had him, but, he's in Chicago now. But I guess that's, I mean, like, because my thing is, too, even if you do feel that way about having the third guy, what do you think? Is they're going to accept less money than Lonzo? Right? Yeah, it's got to be a guy that either is more,
I think it's about, like, how good is Lonzo? We can have that convo. I mean,
he's better. He's better than him.
Potential. I think that's tough.
Okay,
but look how many great guards in the league.
Whoever the third guy is, whoever the
playing in
third guy
Chicago
is.
next to Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, what type of numbers Lonzo gonna put up there? We talking about All-Star? They gonna get 3 All-Stars in the game?
I said All-Star caliber. I didn't mean like he's gonna actually go to the All-Star game. I said All-Star caliber. But I can say this: I know that he better than any guards on the New Orleans Pelicans roster right now, and that's just me personally speaking. So I can't speak for you or Theus, but I feel like he's better than those guards that kind of replace Lonzo Ball.
But I think though, to Will's point, it's not just about who's better.
It's about the numbers as well,
right? The numbers, and like, can you, you know what I'm saying? Is it worth the salary? But that's what I'm saying.
For your point,
if you're gonna be cheap, then you ain't ever gonna win. So either you be cheap and just tank, or spend some bread and try and win. But you can't be on the fence with, you know what I'm saying, all right, we're gonna let Lonzo go, but Damian Lillard's just gonna walk to New Orleans.
I think Will is saying, like, it's probably more easy for the Norrickens to want to pay the money if they get a big time like a Bradley Beal or a Damian Lillard. Then it's just like, all right, we'll pay that shit now. Okay, but they don't want to pay it for Lonzo.
But if that happens, though, that's going to have to happen through a trade. And if you're not giving up Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson, what is that trade package looking like?
Draft picks.
Draft picks, man. That's what got James Harden.
It better be numero uno. They better make it numero uno.
Yeah.
We are talking about 2 dudes that can give you 40 in their sleep. If it ain't numero uno, I'm hanging up the damn phone.
Yeah, I mean, but I think again, I'm gonna push back a little bit. And I've been lucky this year because the Lonzo fans have been out of my mentions, and I'm feeling so good about not having Lonzo fans.
Congratulations.
But now I feel like I'm inviting them back now with this combo. But I feel like, man, again, if you're paying all that money to Zoe, Bi, and Zion, what's your ceiling with that team? How good are you really gonna be in the West? That's my question. And again, of course, you want to keep your stars happy. Them dudes love Zoe. They wanted them here.
They were young. They're young though, Will.
How good you gonna be with those guys?
They're young. They're young. That's my pushback. They're young.
Young or not,
they can grow together.
Question. Do you ultimately think that team, even like now or even 5 years from now, do you think that trio could win a championship? That's for you, Ahmad. Do you think that a trio of Lonzo, Zion, and Bi? And again, I'm not saying that they can't.
You know what?
That's just a question we have to answer.
Yes, I do, because Brandon Ingram and Zion, they're tough. Like, it's not like we talk about that top 5. It's Jayson Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, Luka Doncic, Trae Young, and who's the other guy?
Devin Booker.
Devin Booker. Brandon Ingram's right there. Zion Williamson's right there. So it's just like, and they got 2 of those guys on the same team. So you got to
still can't get. But to me though, that's the point though, is that they have 2 of those guys, and one hasn't been healthy.
So it's just
actually,
like
all three of them are healthy.
But if you have two of those guys, though, and maybe in their mindset, if they have two guys that are 25 and under still talented, maybe that's the reason why they feel like they didn't need Zoe. Maybe. And like I said, I'm not in the GM room, but I'm saying maybe that was their thought process. It's like, all right, we want Zoe, we love Zoe, think he's talented, but considering what we already have, right, is a team willing to spend that much? Again, to Will's point, is this going to get done? Because my thing is, if you give Zoe that contract, you're basically saying, all right, this core is going to get it done.
This is our squad.
Right, this is what we're moving forward. There will be very limited trades around these three.
And I would have did that. Done. And I would have did that because you would have still had draft capital as well with all the trades and assets that they got. Because I'll tell you one thing, it's more likely that they will win with that core than it is for them to get a big trade piece like Will think. Because it ain't happening. I just don't see it.
I think that's fair. That's fair for sure.
I don't see it.
And now they might be stuck. You lost out on Zoe, and unless there's some free agent or trade that happens,
it's a very dangerous game that the New Orleans Pelicans are playing right now. That's just all. And Will knows it. You know it. I know it's very dangerous right now how they're playing.
It's getting spooky. But yeah, Will, man, if you could, man, I know obviously you mentioned covering the Pelicans for 6 years now. From New Orleans. If you could, man, give us your favorite. Your favorite 5 players from the New Orleans franchise, I guess. So he doesn't have to necessarily be, Pelicans per se. Yep. But
and New Orleans area because we got some hoopers in New Orleans.
Well, right, yeah, not Lily born and raised. You know what I'm saying?
I went to high school. My man DJ Augustin, he was 1 year ahead of me at Brother Martin, so I used to walk the halls with my dude DJ.
Shout out to DJ. But all right, you can't name Anthony Davis or Chris Paul.
I think they're gonna kill me if I would have named AD anyway, because they don't love him too much in New Orleans anymore.
I wish I would known that. I would have said you can't name him then.
But nah, man, I gotta. Maybe I'm a little biased. I'm a big BI fan, man. I just think off the court, I think that dude is so solid, and just the way he approached the game, I really love covering BI and just getting to pick his brain all the time. So I'll put him up there. I think Z's easy, so I'm not going to include him. Man, like I said, I was a big Hornets guy back in the G, so I used to love that Crescent City connection with CP and Tyson Chandler throwing those lobs, man. Them dudes were super nice together. This one, people are laughing at me for saying this, but man, I used to love me some Jordan Crawford, instant grits with the AD Boogie team. That dude used to be a bucket getter, didn't care about anybody. I got to throw my dude instant grits in there. And speaking of that squad, I got to throw Boogie in there. That used to be my guy.
Facts.
Back in the G before he tore his Achilles. I still look, even though they have Zion now and BI, I still look back all the time and think, man, what if Boogie didn't tear his Achilles? Where would we all be right now if they just were able to lock down AD, Drew, and Boogie long term? How good would that squad have been? I think that's going to forever be a huge what if in my mind. And I got to throw Drew in there too, man. Drew's such a stand-up dude. Developed his game so much. He went through so much with his wife, having a brain tumor, having his first child, having all the leg problems, dealing with AD demanding a trade. Man, I forever got respect for Drew. And I feel like I got to an old school dude. My man, Baron Davis.
Okay,
I was waiting on it. Yeah,
I was waiting for like a '90s player, I
was waiting on it.
1,000. Much love to BI and Z, but
Baron, man, was that dude in New Orleans. He another one that had kind of an ugly exit out of New Orleans, but he was that dude in a Hornets jersey for sure, man. And that was one of the dudes that really got me to fall in love with basketball in New Orleans. Just watching them kill with that squad. It was just unfortunate it didn't last that long, but man, I think a lot of people who are younger now sleep on that. If Baron played in this league with all of this pick and roll they play and
athletic,
all big men in the paint, man, Baron would have been a killer in today's NBA because he could shoot, he could get to the basket, he could pass, he could do everything. He was just he played in a time where there was just so many people in the paint all the time. He just wanted to go downhill, so it was tough for him. And he had the injuries and stuff, but Baron was tough.
I'll tell you another one, and we're going to let you go. I'm surprised you didn't say Jamal Mashburn.
Ooh, Monster Mash.
Ooh, simple game, but was a bucket. It wasn't going to really break you down off the dribble. Wasn't going to do no crazy crossovers or handles, but was a bucket. Get to his spots, money.
Killer fadeaway. Killer.
Yeah. So you got any final words or any crazy takes you want to say on no pump fakes? your outro, if you will, or
I
any
just
last
want to
words
say,
for the fans.
man, to all the Lonzo fans out there, wow, we squashed the beef. I don't want any problems. Lonzo's happy in Chicago. He got his bread. We good now. I don't want any issues with y'all. I know they big fans of Slam. So, yeah, I don't want any issues. I show love to LaMelo at the top, so I'm not a ball hater. I'll get me some triple B slides if that's what we got to do to squash the beef. But nah, man, I'm just happy y'all invited me on, man. I'm looking forward to the season. As y'all can see, I'm in my hotel room in Chicago. This is my first road game since the pandemic hit. So, man, I'm just excited to be back in the building, back to a little sense of normalcy. And I'm just looking forward to a fun year, man. It's going to be great no matter what happens.
For sure, man. And we appreciate you, for being on, the show. Obviously, safe travels. Obviously, we're still in a pandemic, everything like that. So, stay safe, man, and everything like that, man. Appreciate you. Peace, y'all.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate y'all, man.
What's up, y'all? It's Theus McBee. Make sure you go follow No Pump Fakes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to your podcasts.